Let's talk about integration with Shopify API. There are only two things required to be able to interact with their API. First one is a store name. It should be visible in the admin page when you create your own shop, or you need to ask for the name, the owner of the shop you integrate with. Second requirement is access token, and I'll show how to create access token in just a moment. Once we know those two things, I want to create a little service which we then can use in any part of our application. All authentication will happen automatically. We just need to know query we want to use to list, for example, list of products. So let's begin. This is a Shopify admin main page, or homepage if you like. We want to go to the settings, which by the way is in very unusual place and often can be overlooked. Once we are there, we click on apps and sales channels. After that, we need to go to develops apps. Then we hit create app. Let's give it a simple name like API. And after waiting for a few moments, we click on configure admin API scopes. We select which scopes we want to have access to, which in my case is product write and read. Once selected, we click on save. Once that's finished, we hit install app. And finally, we reveal access token. We want to keep this access token because it's only revealed once to us. I've just installed the most basic Symfony framework and Symfony HTTP component. First, I want to configure our Symfony HTTP client. We can use scoped clients feature within HTTP client part. We can give our scoped client name Shopify in order to match variable name when we auto-wire variables inside constructor class. As you can see, I'm setting a base URI which needs to match our shop URL and path for the version of GraphQL we want to use. I'm also adding two headers. One is a content type, which is application/JSON, and the second one is a special header defined by Shopify with access token value. Our access token header value is going to be pulled from environment variables. That means we can replace access token depending on what environment we're using. It's going to be different value for development and production, of course. We also want to use environment variable for our store URL. I'm now specifying those values inside .env files. When that's configured, I want to create a Symfony command, which we can execute in terminal and test our code quickly. Within my constructor command, I inject Symfony HTTP Client, we've just configured inside framework YAML file. Then I'm going to use my HTTP client to make a first call to Shopify API. I want to query some products. After making sure that the query is correctly encoded inside our payload, we get a successful response back. We can make a few tweaks in just a moment so that code is going to be more reusable and testable. What we did so far is making a successful call to Shopify API. The last part is to create our own service where we can make HTTP client more reusable. What we want is one method with one parameter. That parameter will be our payload sent to Shopify API with already enough information related to authentication. As you can see, I'm injecting our configured Shopify HTTP client to my service. For my post method, I'm making sure that I only accept an array as input and I expect an array as response. Now I can replace my client inside our command constructor with a service we've just created. When we want to make a call to Shopify API, the code is a lot easier to use and the result is the same. To summarize, we've configured a Symfony HTTP client where we've defined base URI and 2 required headers. We have added 2 environment variables for our store name and access token. We want to make sure those things change depending on working environment. We've also used scope clients feature in order to match variable name with injected HTTP client interface into any class constructor. After that, we've created a command where we make our first call to get the list of products. When we've made a successful call, I wanted to change the way we're using HTTP client. I don't want to pass extra parameters like path or method because those things will not change. So inside our new service, we simply pass HTTP client and encode payload with predefined request. I hope this information was useful. There are many approaches to this integration, but I hope you can use this video or some parts as your starting point. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.